Welcome back to week 8, finishing it out, and we're going to talk about concepts that will help you draft your research summary. I'm trying to help you get to this stage. This is a final copy, it's marked up, but to get to the stage where you have a memo, you have your topic, you have all of the pieces filled out with secondary and primary source information that's relevant to the topic, and you have a works cited or reference page, depending on you chose MLA or APA for my class. So we're going to get there eventually. But first, you click on Understanding Concepts, which outlines the type of introduction for this research summary, because the way you start things off, the way you present yourself on a piece of paper in person, it matters. And just like any other essay you're going to write, you need an intro for a memo. But because it's a memo, it needs to be shorter than intros you might be used to writing. I have a sort of formulaic idea you could use to create a intro that's 3 sentences long. So let's look at these examples that you can also find on Understanding Concepts. But there's 4 student examples from past semesters of different ways to start a research summary. We see number 1 is really long. That's, oh, that must be the best. It has a lot of detail. Number 2 is kind of second in terms of how long it is. 3 is the shortest. 4, it looks like it's got 3 sentences. So if I had to choose which one was best, and if you scan through it and decide for yourself, I would settle on 2 and 4. So they're shorter than number 1, and they're longer than number 3, and they follow the formula of the first sentence is trying to hook the reader, trying to interest the reader, either with a fact or with a rhetorical question that gets the reader in that frame of mind of the topic. And then the second sentence bridges that hook, that little interesting tidbit, to the relevance of what the research summary is kind of going to be about. It's not a purpose statement, but it's, here's the reason my hook, that interesting part, relates to my topic. I'm bridging it so it makes more sense why I use that hook. And then for number 4, which is one of the shorter ones, but it's still effective, it ends with a purposeful statement that talks about the topic, the locale, Sulphur Springs, excuse me, and lists out some of the subtopics, kind of what are some problems that are being dealt with. So in 3 sentences, you could ideally have your intro for this research summary memo finished. We see this one from this student sample is pretty short. I don't know, maybe 4-ish sentences. But they followed the formula. They hooked in the reader. They bridged it. I don't know about how well they bridged it. And then they have a purpose statement there. So that's what you're looking to do. And that's part of getting that draft ready, a solid intro. Another part of your draft is having secondary sources. So what that means is I've kind of yammered away at, you need a primary source, and you can use a cool digital tool to get to observe online. Yes, you need that. But because that's only one piece of the puzzle, and it might only be talking about one part of your memo, impacted population or elsewhere, you need other sources. And we can see they have parentheses that are not exactly correct, but they have parentheses. Other sources that help you fill in the other parts of the memo, because the background information, a lot of it is probably historical stuff. You're not going to know that. You have to look it up. and explaining the problem, you might be able to explain it, but are you doing it factually? Are you pulling in some stats to kind of illustrate that's why this is a problem, or this is the problem? That's why this person used some other secondary sources. And when I say secondary, someone else wrote it, someone else not just wrote it, but so they gathered all the information and put it into a repository like an article. That's a secondary source. If you're looking at something that, in terms of primary research, someone else created the digital tool you're using, like OmniSci TweetMap, but because you are using it in a unique way to generate your research results, you could call that primary research and online observations. So that in that way, they're different, because I get students who get confused. If you're confused, reach out to me. But so to fill in the report adequately, you need that balance of here's what other people had to say about it, and then here's from my own observations, my own collection, my own data collection. Here's the overall premise of the issue for this location, what it's about. And at the end, here's kind of my thought for how we could fix it. And when you're looking for secondary sources, you can look at not just online articles, but you can look at YouTube videos if they're appropriate to your topic. You could look at TED Talks or stats on other websites or something that you find. You could refer to your old database as long as you're not copying sentences from P2 in some way. There's a link for a website. You could use a database that you are going to have to log into as a USF student to fully access it, but it's Gale and Context Opposing Viewpoints, because it has just really cool ways to show you different types of sources. Because when you type in your topic in a very broad way, it shows you at the top how you could look for different types of sources on that same topic. If you didn't just want to look at an article, you wanted to see some images or, you know, a video or just a magazine article. So in that way, this is helpful. If you're finding stuff on your topic, but it's not, maybe your topic is in Florida, but really you're looking at Tampa overall, but you can't find anything specific to that. Anything you find that's related to the state or kind of loosely related to your area could still be used as like background information. And you say, even though this is talking about all of Florida, it could indicate that in Tampa, X, Y, and Z. So any source you find that's loosely related to your area for your topic could still work, even though you can't find anything specific to, your specific where you're looking at, which might be a smaller location. There is going to be less sources about it. We see, I'm trying to scroll down and there's not a whole lot, and it might not even have anything to do with what I'm looking for. So sometimes filtering out to the bigger, like the state, could help for secondary sources, just so you get some help to fill in the background information, to explain the problem, those sorts of sources that will, that you could say relate to your location, if that makes sense. So those are ideas for secondary sources that are required for the research summary. And then the last part of understanding concepts is thinking about outlines. And I'm going to repeat it again. This is a writing course. So sometimes we are going to talk about writing basics that are maybe make you roll your eyes. You're like, an outline. But outlines help you even in the professional world, because it's about managing expectations. And it's about a template. What do I need to do to finish this document, this project? And in that way, outlines are your best friend. And so for the research summary on that understanding concept page, I have a sort of outline to help you develop that draft. And you could copy and paste it to a document and start filling in what you know about it and information you have gotten because of your secondary and because of your primary source information. You could start to fill in, okay, I have some historical info or context about the background. I'm not looking to build a historical essay, but I have, a few facts about that I'm going to start listing. Okay. Okay, thank you. Hush. And then you find other things that have to do with these other parts, and you're going to fill it in. And eventually, you're going to have something of a workable draft for the text. And that's what you need for the rough draft. So the rough draft is you have all the text. You tried to make it look somewhat like a memo. That's what I'm concerned about for this rough draft, that you have the text for all the headers. You have not just the background explanation, blah, 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 but you have an intro, like we just discussed earlier. And you also have a conclusion that is short, but just like any sort of memo, it ends with, a call to action in a sentence, or how could we, there is a solution, but I'm just going to tell you in an informal way, in a sentence or two, of what could happen to fix it, because the purpose of the memo is not let's fix it. The purpose of the memo is there is a problem. Here's how the community feels about it. And that's mostly it. And I'm also, even in your rough draft, looking for your works cited page. Even in your rough draft, looking for, did they cite their sources using parentheses in the correct manner for either APA or MLA? I'm looking for those sorts of things with your rough draft. And let's go out to the tutoring, which you should already kind of be comfortable with. And I know smart thinking is like never working. I don't know what to do with it. So use, of course, Tutor Me or Google USF Writing Studio and make an appointment, take a picture, upload it by March 7th. Draft of the research summary. You're going to submit it to USF Writes. Here we see again another outline, reminding you that you need that reference or works cited page. You need your primary research mentioned and utilized openly in some way. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a picture, because for some of the surveys, for some of the interviews, how can you really put a picture of that? But you need to mention it. Like if you have a survey in there, you need to say, based on the survey, blah, 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 respondents feel that, or based on my interview with so-and-so principal, this could be inferred that. So I'm going to be scanning it for your primary research, your secondary sources, making sure you have all the headers. It looks like somewhat like a memo at the top. Those are the big picture stuff that I'm looking for. I'm also looking for in-text citations. Your primary source does not have to be cited as an in-text citation per se. You just need to somehow mention it. I would, on your reference or works cited page, want a URL for your primary data if that applies. And I only want a screenshot of your primary source information if somehow it was collected digitally. And then underneath that screenshot, you still need a caption if you so choose to include one. And there's some student samples there. I don't accept late rough drafts. It needs to be uploaded to USF Writes by March 7th. And then, like we always do, there's a peer review discussion board. And that's it for week 8. And if you have questions, you reach out to me or Ashlyn.